Hello, for those who new on this channel, my name is Dima. I travel quite often and share my experience here, which I hope will be useful to you when you're planning your own adventures. This is the second part of our journey through South Africa. If you haven't watched the first one, the link will be somewhere here. Also, subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you enjoy it. And now let's get to the point. In this episode we are going to explore what an African safari is, clarify the nuances of going on a safari in South Africa, and of course embark on a search for the big 5 African animals. We will also take a look at the tallest bungee jump in Africa, and we will sneak a peek at Plettenberg Bay. Apparently it's where the South African millionaires hang out. Now, to kick off our safari adventure, we set out sights on Addo Elephant National Park in the Eastern Cape. Just to give you a sense, that's a good 740 kilometers from Cape Town. Considering the remoteness of this location and the abundance of interesting places along the way, we planned stops on the way there and back at the most interesting ones. In the end, our route looked like this: Cape Town to Plettenberg Bay, then off to Addo Elephant Park, a quick hop over to Knysna, a stop in Stellenbosch, and back to Cape Town. You might wonder why we had to travel so far for a safari. Aren't there closer options? Yes and no. There are only a few small private reserves relatively close to Cape Town, but they are more like zoos. We really wanted an authentic adventure, and big national parks are the best for that. Also, due to the COVID-related issues, flying was not an option at that time, and Addo turned out to be the closest to Cape Town. Plus, the road to it goes along the famous garden route. Just as the name suggests, it's a stunning drive stretching 200 kilometers along the Indian Ocean. It's really cool because it passes through several natural zones: savanna, subtropics, tropical forests, and the semi-desert Karoo region. So it's packed with a beautiful and diverse nature. The first town on the garden route for us was Plettenberg Bay, and the journey from Cape Town took us about 7 hours of quite intense but comfortable driving. At this point it was paying a little attention to the roads and traffic patterns on South African roads. Like I said in the first episode, the roads are pretty much like what you find in Europe, and they drive on the left, like in other former British colonies. I've driven on the left before, but here it just felt more comfortable. Some non-standard road signs also caught our attention. Here are a couple of them that stood out. But let's get back to the Plettenberg Bay, or Plet as locals call it. Some travel guides consider this town the pearl of the garden route, and we decided to check that out. So, Plet was our chill-out beach spot between Cape Town and the next leg of our trip. We had 2 days there, but only got beach weather on day 1. A bit of bummer, right? But that nudged us to check out other cool spots around, but more on that in a bit. Now, Plet's known as a fancy getaway for local millionaires and, according to Wikipedia, a privileged vacation spot for South Africans. But to be honest, we didn't see any of that luxury stuff. Oh, and it's a hot spot for whale watching from June to November. But we were there in March, so no whales for us. The city is right by this bay called Formosa, which means beautiful in Portuguese, and trust me, it lives up to its name. Since our stay in Plet was supposed to be a beach one, we chose a hotel with that in mind. It was nothing that there are not so many hotels here, and good ones are rare. So, most people stay in villas and guest houses around here, but we went for the Sky Villa Boutique Hotel. The location, views and design, top-notch, but the food and service, not so much. I'm on the fence about recommending it, but maybe they have fixed things up since our visit. The cost of the room with breakfast was $150 per night. On our first day we just chilled on Plet's main beach, Hobby Beach. It's a decent beach, not quite Caribbean vibes, but it's still nice. It's small with nice sand and clean though chilly ocean. But the big star of the beach and maybe Plet in general is the Bacon Island Resort. The beach has all stuff you need, including restaurants for a tasty lunch. And a fun side note, you'll probably end up chatting with some of the local retirees who spend their old age here. And by the way, enthusiastically indulge in alcoholic beverages regardless of their age and the time of day. It is worth mentioning that the sociability of local community was evident throughout our journey. Aside from typical topics and where you're from questions, conversations often turned into the challenges and uncertainties of life in South Africa amidst recent changes in the government composition. We wrapped the day with an amazing meal at 1999. If you go, try the tuna steak and check out their wine, seriously good. You know, Plet's got some surprisingly top-tier restaurants, probably because of the profile of the local clientele. Due to the weather, the next day we dedicated to two activities in the surroundings of Plet, and first we went to Monkeyland. We hit up this huge forest that's basically a home for monkeys. It's like they are in a zoo, but it feels wild because of how big it is. As someone who's all about monkeys, I love it. The cost of admission is around $20 for adults, and it's about an hour's worth of fun. We got there just in time for feeding, so all the monkeys were easy to spot. A heads up, though, there are a ton of mosquitoes, so dress smart. We saw some folks in shorts and tees getting eaten alive. Oh, and there is a bird park close by. You can get a discount if you want to see both, but we were all about the monkeys and headed off after. The second place was Robberg Nature Reserve. It is a peninsula located 8 kilometers from Plet, and it probably became the brightest and most impressive exhibit among those we managed to see on the garden route. So this place is one of the UNESCO World Heritage list. Now, instead of diving deep into all the history stuff, here is the lowdown. It's $3 to get in. You have got 3 hiking trails to pick from, anywhere from 2 to 9 kilometers. We went for the intermediate one, and it took us 3 hours. We were not exactly ready for it. If you do not really enjoy climbing steep and rocky slopes, or if you are afraid of heights, it's better to stick with the easier road. Some parts had us like, should we head back? Are you good? Yeah, let's just go a little further. Some of us even commented on the choice of this activity with expressions that are not suitable for a decent channel, but the motivation kept coming from the locals who easily hopped around these sometimes challenging trails. But once you get to the top, mind-blowing sand dunes and some otherworldly vegetation. And the view going down to the beach, one of the best sights we ever seen on this trip. Pack some snacks and your swimsuit. You could easily make a day of it, hiking and then chilling on a quiet beach. Seriously, do not skip this spot. Inspired by this success, we went to celebrate our rock climbing debut at Zinzi Restaurant. Just 11 kilometers from Plet, there is this awesome place called Salad Treetop Lodge. If you are not on a tight budget, totally consider staying there. The restaurant's not cheap, but it won't break the bank either. Plus it gave us that fancy resort experience. Super classy, and the food was delish. Highly recommend. Overall, Plettenberg Bay turned out to be quite the charmer and lived up to our expectations. So feel free to put it on your map. The next morning it was time to bid farewell to Plet and head towards the safari. On this day we had a 300-kilometer stretch with a stop at the Bloukrans Bridge, the highest arch bridge in the world. For the thrill seekers out there, there is bungee jumping available, a chance to leap from a wild 216 meters. For some perspective, that's taller than most skyscrapers, just so you know. By the way, this is where the border between the Western and Eastern Cape regions runs. It's also in the top 5 highest bungee spots worldwide. Jumping will set you back about 90 US. Everything is very organized and professional and has been run by a well-known New Zealand company since 1997. This place is worth a visit even if you do not plan to make the jump. You can simply admire the views and the courage of the jumpers. By evening we finally arrived to the safari point. So let's first understand what it is safari and the specifics of safari in South Africa. So let's talk about safaris, or game drives as they call them here. It's basically watching wild animals do their thing from your car. Now you can do this in big national parks or in private estates, often called private game reserves, and there is plenty of both. The main difference between them lies in the cost. National parks are public areas where anyone can enter by paying an entrance fee. To visit the private reserve, you usually need to book accommodation at one of the luxury lodges that operate on an all-inclusive basis. Most of these spots want you to stay for at least 3 nights, and it can cost anywhere from 300 to 1,500 a night depending on the level of luxury. If that's too steep, national parks are much cheaper. We paid 22 US each and drove around all day in our own vehicle. However, the downside is that they can get crowded, which can affect the intimacy of the wildlife viewing, especially on weekends, since locals love it too. So maybe avoid weekends if you can. Accommodation can be found both within the park and nearby. Options with the park are usually quite basic, but not expensive. As I mentioned earlier, we choose Addo Elephant Park. And this place, like the name suggests, is Elephant Central. But the park's website also said to look out for the rest of the big 5: rhinos, buffaloes, lions and leopards. However, we opted the second option. It's called Camp Figtree and it is a great lodge. It's perched up on a mountain about 15 kilometers from the park. It's got all the perks of a private reserve, but since it's not inside the park, it's a bit cheaper. Honestly, if you pair up solo trips to the park with staying here, it's a sweet deal. It's around 300 US a night with breakfast thrown in. We picked the luxury tent and it was a cool experience. Imagine a hotel room decked out colonial style, but swap out the walls for a solid tent with actual windows and doors. Super fancy camping vibes. The only downside, sound travels. You are smack in the middle of nature, so you'll hear every creature out there, day and night. I love it, especially chilling with some Pinotage wine. But if you are a light sleeper, it might keep you awake. Oh, and a tip, keep those doors and windows shut at night or you might wake up in the company of someone from the local wildlife. I surely have to highlight the dinners at our lodge. In places like this, you are essentially in the middle of the wild, and there are not many dining options other than the hotel restaurant. A big shout out to the camp's team.
Oh, hello Ukraine, how are you? I don't know how do you say hello.
Yeah, it's okay.
Perfect. My name is Chen, representing Camp Figtree in South Africa, Eastern Cape. Beautiful place. Weather, people, as you can see, the food, activities, safaris, all of that is there to do. So come to South Africa, pay us a visit. Cheers!
Despite the lack of competition, the quality of food, level of service and attention to detail were on par with the best hotels worldwide. And for dinner, brace yourself for some tasty kudu or buffalo steak, paired with some amazing South African wine, and it is the perfect meal. The evening atmosphere at our lodge was amazing. Chatting with the staff and other guests was the highlight. Felt a bit like those old-timey colonial adventures, if you ask me. As we discovered during one of these conversations, South Africa has a total of 11 official languages. The main two are English and Afrikaans, which everyone speaks. The other languages are used by local residents from different regions. In the region where we were, everyone spoke this interesting language called Xhosa.
Like I'm call Mbobe, Mpenso. We use the cues, Umosho, Amakagova, there's a lot to learn here.
It also worth mentioning that mornings at the lodge were an absolute highlight. Besides the delicious breakfasts, breathtaking views await you on the tent's terrace and throughout the complex. But let's get back to the safari. The park opens at 7 in the morning and closes at 6 for those who are not staying on site. Then you have 3 options for exploring it. So you have got a few choices for safaris. First, the pricier one is going with a ranger in a Land Rover, either with a small group or just your own crew. Second, you can roll through the park in your own car, but have a ranger hop in with you. That's what we did, and it was around 30 US for a 4-hour ride. The last option is just driving around by yourself without a ranger. Honestly, I'd skip the last one. With a ranger you are way more likely to see animals, and they know the place inside out. Plus, most of the folks working there are super passionate about their jobs, so it just makes the experience way better. So around the park's lobby they have got everything you need: cafes, shops and other conveniences. On our 4-hour safari we unfortunately didn't get to see all the animals on our list. Of the big 5 we saw a ton of elephants, like right up close. Took our breath away, really. Buffaloes showed up too, and trust me, they are nothing like the cows back home. Just one look and you know they mean business. Sadly, no rhinos, they were playing hide and seek in the bushes. Lions and leopards were also notably absent. As the ranger later admitted, there are very few of them left in this park, because most of them were relocated due to their special appetite, which posed a threat to the elephants. But hey, we saw lots of zebras, kudus and other antelopes. By the way, if you check the park's reception, they have the schedule showing when you are most likely to see certain animals. It should be noted that visiting this safari, specifically in this place and in the format we choose, left mixed feelings. On the one hand, there was a safari, but on the other, not quite. If I had to do it again, and for anyone thinking about it, I'd say stay inside the park, even if you have to pick a simpler place to sleep. It's worth it, and give yourself at least 2 full days for the safari. The main advantage of this approach is the opportunity to go on both morning and night drives, which are more interesting. That's when the scenes get interesting with the predators out and about. As for Addo, it is solid for a first-time experience, but next time we will definitely go to Kruger or Plettenberg parks. That's a whole different level, but that's a story for another time. Well, this episode has come to an end, but if you want to know about gorgeous wine region near Cape Town, you should look to this video. And if you like what I do, you know what to do. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.